Hey everyone, I'm Robyn Ferguson, and you're listening to Channa 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 podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of my podcast. We have a very special guest today, all the way from Capetown, South Africa. We got Robyn Ferguson. Hi Robyn.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah. So Robyn, how's the situation in your place with the pandemic and everything?
Yeah, it's been quite intense. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's been interesting here. So we've had quite a serious lockdown where we haven't been able to do too much, and then of late it's eased up a bit, so we're able to go outside and do the stuff. But it's made for a lot of creative, well, focused creative time, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
So the people who normally spend time writing songs, doing stuff in the studios, it doesn't really do a big difference, right?
Yeah. If you're a solo artist and you record in your bedroom, it doesn't really change it if you're in lockdown or not, right?
Right, right. Uh, so, Robyn, can you tell me a little bit about where you live and about your town?
Yeah, so I mean, I stay in a beautiful part of South Africa called Capetown, and I'm very fortunate. I'm very close to the ocean, and it's a lovely, lovely part of the country. I moved here about a year and a half ago, down south from Gauteng, which is one of the northern provinces, and just to be with family and just to have a bit more of a creative environment, like with nature, and just be able to have a bit more space and a bit more freedom in that regard. It's like a much nicer environment. It's so beautiful. Unfortunately, today it's like a bit overcast. Otherwise, I would show you the wonderful, wonderful Capetown weather that everybody's always bragging about. And now it's like terrible.
Right. So,
Yeah.
Robyn, I'm actually a Sri Lankan. I born in island of Sri
Yeah.
Lanka, and then I moved in the Philippines about 15 years ago. uh, I've been in going to a lot of concerts, a lot of metal stuff for like last 20 years. But
Yeah.
only just recently, I started discovering bands from South Africa.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's bands all over the place. I mean, I got in contact with somebody from Egypt the other day, and I was just like, what? There are these amazing bands in places we've never even heard of or never even thought of. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. How are you enjoying your time in the Philippines?
I I really enjoyed it because I already call Philippine my home because I've been here for so long, and I like it because it's in between west and east, so it's not completely east, it's not completely west, it's something in between, so you can enjoy both worlds.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Right. So, Robyn, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, and then when did your probably your like earliest memory of music?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on like a farm in the Free State, which is one of our provinces in the middle of the country, and didn't wasn't really exposed to much music there. Just a lot of like what my parents were listening to, which is a lot of classical music on the radio. So there wasn't necessarily instrumentation or instruments around for me to like get into playing music as such. It was only much later into my like teenage years when we moved to like a big city, and I started getting exposed to music. And I'll never forget it. I was walking with my father in the town, and there was this guy sitting on the corner playing guitar, like just randomly with a hat, just busking and having the time of his life. And I remember that moment and seeing how happy he was, and just
Hmm.
going like, that's life. I want to be happy. I want to play music, and it just looks so amazing. So I think that's probably one of like the earliest real like influential moments of my life. And then from there, there's been several things that happened. But I mean, I just got into guitar and never looked back.
Right. Do you remember when did you get your first guitar?
Yeah, so I mean, we had this project for school where we had to create a musical instrument, and it could have been anything. It could be like a drum out of a pot and a pan, you know, like it could be anything. And
Right.
I had it in my idea that I wanted to create a guitar because it just looked so cool. And obviously, I didn't want to like be like all the other kids. I wanted to do something different. So I remember bugging my dad to like build me a guitar. And I said to him, well, if we're going to make this musical project, why don't we just do it properly? Like, why don't we like, and I really just bugged him so much. And one day my mother had gone to visit a friend of hers, and she was given a guitar, and she brought it home, and she said to my father, like, I don't know what to do with this thing, like with this instrument, like I don't really know, but like Robyn has been going on and on and on and on about learning to play guitar. What if we just give it to her? So yeah, and that's like I'll never forget that guitar. I have it here still. Was such a piece of junk, but it's what I got into. I played it until my fingers bled, and just really like channeled everything I could into it. Saved all my pocket money and everything to get an electric guitar, and then from there that just changed life. Like getting exposed to electric guitar and seeing, like, I mean, I'm looking at the posters behind you now, Megadeth, seeing like amazing artists on the walls of the music shop, and just like
Right.
spending time on the internet and getting exposed to this and just having my mind blown. Yeah, I mean, I just was infected with music and with the guitar, and just had to dive further in it. So I think it's kind of just bit me from my teenage years, really.
Right. So what sort of songs were you like started playing?
Well, starting off on guitar was very boring when I got lessons because they made me play like classical guitar. But getting into electric, I mean, I played a lot of my own stuff. I came sort of just naturally started writing a lot of my own music. I've never really been one to play a lot of cover songs, but when I started off, I would do like, I mean, the typical like Black Sabbath, you know, that kind
Right.
of vibe. And then when I started hearing a lot of Randy Rhoads playing and Nino Bettencourt and those type of bands, and I started wanting to play like that and getting into the shreddy guitarists like Malmsteen and so on, and just like listening to these people. I think that's sort of just started channeling my music into that. And you know, you always want to play some of the riffs of the stuff that you hear from the songs that you like. But I always try to take that and adapt it into something of my own. Like, yeah, just so I think it's just like a mix of everything.
So if you have to choose, who would be your top three guitarists for you?
Top, yeah, it's so hard because there's so many. um, but not, I wouldn't say just guitarists, it's like musicians. So Devin Townsend is a huge influence in my life as
Right.
a musician as a whole. Other guitarists, it would have to be like Randy Rhoads in particular, and like Vi and Satriani, just in terms of their ability to combine shred and melody. Like those kind of make them top musician guitarists for me, if you wish.
Right.
But there's so many to list, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Because all those guitarists that you mentioned are actually also my favorite guitarists as well, especially Devin Townsend.
Like he's insane, man. Like his mind is just absolutely incredible. I would love to be in a room with him and just like chat music and chat musical process, because he's on a whole nother level, that guy. Hey.
Yeah, because last year I actually attended his one man show,
Amazing.
which is he's just him and his guitar, and
Yeah.
it was not like it wasn't really like a concert. It felt more like a stand up comedy show, because he has this sort of he changes his mood, he changes his character for each song. He has like a different character. So it was
Yeah.
really, really interesting. That show was really amazing.
Yeah, he like elevates his music to from music to like a complete art form. It's like a production within himself. Even I think people get caught up with like a band and it's just a band playing. But if you look at guys like Devin Townsend, or even if you want to go back to like Alice Cooper and Iron Maiden, with the big props and like it's a whole production, it's a whole show, and you get into character for that song. I love it. It's brilliant. It must have been an amazing show. I'm so jealous.
Yeah. So Robyn, what do you remember? Like, what was your like first performance?
Yes, I do. First, like legit gig in a club. I was 12, and it was terrible, of course. I remember being like so afraid. I remember heading to the show, like getting dressed and getting ready, you know, getting kitted out and packing my guitar and everything. I was shaking like a leaf. And it was a terrible show. Just because we were 12 and our music was horrible, like punk band at the time. But it was such an adrenaline rush. Like, I don't think my life has changed, you know, like I could never go back to normal life, just addicted to being on stage from that moment on. But yeah, first shows are interesting.
Right. So you play guitar, but you also sing in several bands, right? So when did the singing started? Is it parallel to guitar, or you how that happened?
So I always consider myself a guitarist first. Guitar is my first love. It is my instrument. I'm a guitarist. And then vocal sort of happened just from like curiosity, really. I mean, I was listening to more and more bands, and finding more and more female fronted bands, and listening to people like Angela Gosso, for, like when she was with Arch Enemy, and you know, stuff like that, and just realizing, whoa, hey, this is a whole nother art form. And I think it's incredibly uncommon, especially in South Africa, at the time when I started doing vocals, for a female musician to be able to do like screaming death metal, black metal vocals. It was quite uncommon, and I was so fascinated with the technique and with getting into the style, so just really dived into it a lot. And I started off doing some backing vocals in Adorned and Ash, just because I wanted to try it. And our vocalist, I wasn't the original vocalist for the band. We were actually like a 5-piece. We had a vocalist, and he felt like maybe some parts could do with some backing, and we were experimenting with filling the songs out a little bit. And I said to the boys, like, I'd really like to try the screaming thing, like, let me give it a whirl. And yeah, it sounded like I was killing cats at first. But with some practice and with some training, it like was really cool. And then it so happened that he parted ways with us, and we needed a vocalist. And I said to the boys, give me a month to really like give this a shot. And if it's terrible, I will I will bow out gracefully. But like, I'd really like to just try. And they were so supportive. And yeah, with some training from like some awesome people, and yeah, now just got into it and felt the flame of being a vocalist. And I enjoy doing guitar and vocals, and just being vocal separately or just guitar separately. So it's like a lot of fun, gives one a lot of options to fiddle around with, you know.
Right. So like, compared to watching your your solo stuff, which we should talk about, your solo music videos and stuff, and then you're performing with Adorned in Ash, which with screaming and growling, and it's a sort of a different transformation, right?
Yeah, and then if you look, yeah, so like, I mean, solo stuff is mostly instrumental, guitar based, and then Adorned and Ash is full on black and death metal, screaming guitar, like brutal with the face paint. We do the corpse paint makeup. And then Sistas Of Metal, I go put the guitar down and I just do vocals and I run around. Like, it's just a lot of fun. I think if you're a musician, you need to have fun. And if you are able to play with different artists and different musicians and different styles, just to stretch oneself is really good. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So in the Adorned Ash, I was listening to some of the albums in Bandcamp, and then the 2019 album Apocalyptic Violence. There is this song called "The God That Bleeds With," right? With really love the intro of the guitar that starts the song. It's really so cool.
Thank you. It's just always like in a moment where we needed to maybe change guitars on stage, or if we needed to, you know how it goes, like when you're gigging and like you need to tweak something sometimes, we needed like a buffer. So often I would just like mess around on the guitar and play a bit of like a solo. So we decided, let's keep that in and include it as part of the song. Like, let's just start the song that way. So it is a lot of fun. I'm so glad you liked it. Thank you.
Yeah. So with that band, you guys were really quite successful band, right? Because you toured a lot with that band and you played with a lot of these big acts. Can you tell me a little bit about, your performance with that band?
Yeah, so Adorned and Ash, I mean, I've been with Adorned and Ash for about 10, 11 years. So it's been such an amazing journey. And I think Adorned and Ash is really where I've learned the tricks of the trade, so to speak, really have had incredible high moments and incredible low moments with the band. We've gone through so much and we've changed members and such, and like things have happened, but the highlights of being with Adorned and Ash have really been able to play with amazingly huge bands. I mean, we performed with Cannibal Corpse when they were in South Africa, with guys like Belphegor, Epica. We were like, it was just absolutely so much fun being with Adorned and Ash and doing that. And I think still to this day we've slowed down a lot now. Probably Apocalyptic Violence will be our last release for quite some time, but it's not to say that the band's necessarily like over or anything like that. It's just where it is. And I think it's been such a journey with Adorned and Ash. We've got so many funny stories and so many amazing things. It's been such a cool thing. Like I really owe a lot to the band and to the time I've had with AIA. It's so cool.
Yeah, I also feel that the band itself is, over the years, you were also sort of defining, or you keep on changing your, like, sort of transforming your sound of the band, right? Because it's not, you cannot just put it as this is a black metal band or this is a death metal band, because you guys are sort of changing as you go along, right?
Yeah, from the get-go we said, like, we sat around and we were like, we don't want this band to be one thing. Like, we hate it. Like, so many bands get together, musicians get together and say, okay, we're going to start a band, it's going to be a death metal band, and then you put yourself in this box and you constrain yourself to this little thing. And we didn't want to do that. We realized that we had such a vast like, each musician had such a vast musical background and influence in taste and style that they could bring to the table. And why should we just say, okay, we're like a death metal band and just keep it in that? I mean, our drummer Mark, he has a jazz influence. He studied jazz drumming. So to incorporate some jazz elements, drumming style, and you put it into like a metal format, like speed it up, add more double bass or whatever, it actually sounds pretty cool. So we took a lot of that, and we never wanted the band to be static in one genre. We wanted things to always just come naturally and flow naturally. So majority of the music was written by Mark, our drummer, and myself. And then like, depending on which members were in the band at the time, there was also like a huge influence in terms of style, and you can hear that from song to song and like what the message is from that. So it was very important for us to not like box ourselves into one genre from the get-go. So
right. So Robyn, can you tell me a little bit about, of course right now with the COVID there's no shows, but before COVID and before, when everything was normal, how was the metal scene in South Africa? So can you tell me a little bit about the metal scene?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the scene is interesting. It's not as huge as like other countries would have it. You know, there's not like tens of thousands of metalheads in South Africa. It
Right.
is a lesser popular genre in South Africa, but the community is strong when there are awesome events happening. And I think like there are amazing musicians here and amazing bands, and yeah, so the scene is strong. And like when there are awesome events and awesome things like Metal for Africa, which happens twice a year, it's like a local event, it's well supported, and you know there's a lot of camaraderie. So I mean I think it's COVID has done some damage, but we'll get over it. Yeah.
Right. So I heard in a different interview you mentioned that you played in a festival in Angola, like in front of like 27,000 people.
Yeah, 24,000.
Can you tell me a little bit about the other African countries and places you played?
Yeah, so I mean, in South Africa, like you're the largest festival, like probably the most commercial festival that everybody knows is Opikopi, and then you get like probably like 5.5 to 6,000 people. That's like the big festivals in South Africa, and so that's kind of like been the judge in all of our minds locally when we talk about African gigs. Like we kind of imagine that that's like the scale, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. And then, boy, did we realize we were very wrong. Traveling through Africa, there are other African countries which are supposedly, quote unquote, less known or less famous for metal than South Africa, but their following is way bigger and way stronger. So landing up in Angola, it was kind of funny because with Adorned and Ash, we were in Botswana 2 weeks before, and we had an amazing show in Botswana, which was a well-attended, massive, big festival, bigger than anything that we had played ever in South Africa. And then we were like, whoa, this is amazing. We got invited to go to Angola, played the Angola show, and that just blew our minds. Like, it was such a massive festival. We got there, and it was totally not what we expected. We expected a lot of people, but not a lot of people. Like, we pulled up to the venue, and I mean, we had seen people for quite some distance, and I'd never been to Angola before, so I just presumed this is what Angola looks like. There's a buttload of people everywhere. And it turned out that we were actually like at the festival, and all of these people were attending. So it was just so cool. And what was awesome about that festival is it wasn't just a metal festival. It was quite an eclectic mix of genres. There was like rap artists and African artists and rock and metal and blues and jazz, and it was so well supported. Like the guys with the Cannibal Corpse t-shirts were standing supporting the jazz bands, you know what I mean, and vice versa. It was just such a well respected festival. It was amazing. Yeah,
right. So Adorned and Ash, you guys also had a lot of awards in South Africa, right?
We've won. We've been nominated for several South African Metal Music Awards, and we've won twice. Yeah, it's quite an honor. Yeah.
So preparing for this episode, I was kind of like doing a bit of research on what you were involved. I found out that you're part of some sort of a Guns N' Roses tribute band. Is that the case?
So about 2 years ago, I did quite a lot of session work where I played in several bands that was touring and performing, and several like performance acts. So one of them was a Guns N' Roses and Friends tribute. We also had AC/DC versus Deep Purple. I also played in with a different group of people. We had an Alice Cooper tribute, Motley Crue. So we had a bunch of these sort of like this band versus that band, and we would combine the two songs and sort of put on like a bit of a cover show as such, and it was a lot of fun. The Guns N' Roses and Friends was probably the most popular. Just I think South Africa loves Guns N' Roses. So that was a lot of fun, and yeah, we toured most of South Africa with that show. It was quite cool.
Right. So for about your solo work, so how did or when did the idea came that you want to do your own solo, like instrumental music? When did that really happen? Like the idea came for that?
I think from the moment I picked up the guitar, I wanted to create my own music.
Right.
As much as I enjoy playing tributes and cover songs and stuff like that and learning other people's music, I learn it or try it out so that I can incorporate it and steal bits for my own music. I'm a bit of like a musical thief. And so I think from the get-go, if I'm completely honest, I think I just lacked confidence for most of my career to do something solo. And I think it's also sort of like maybe a bit of like a stigma, like, why do you want to do solo stuff when you could play in a band, or you should play in a band, you'll get further. It's like all these weird ideas. And then playing with bands, I was able to write a lot of my own music and bring a lot of that to the table with bands, and we would incorporate things. And I think from about 2017, 18 is when the bug really bit me, where I decided like, okay, cool. It's awesome playing in bands. I love the musicians that I'm involved with, but I would like to do my music my way, like, because I've always wanted in bands for everybody to have a voice. And then with this, I wanted to write my own stuff the way I wanted to. I want the drums to sound like this. I want the bass to be like this, and just how I saw it. Paint my own picture for a change. And also I realized that the music that I had started writing didn't quite fit in with Adorned in Ash or Sistas of Metal or any of the other projects. And it was kind of like a bit of a random standalone sort of thing. And when that started happening, I thought, okay, well, now's the opportunity to take this bull by the horns and like plunge and go do some solo stuff. And it's been so liberating. I'm glad that I've done it. So that's been the journey up until.
Right. So I've been listening to a lot of bands like Polyphia, Chon, Periphery, and all these bands, which I really like. And then when I discovered your songs, your music, it was really fresh. That when I started listening to your music, it's really. Was there any inspiration from other artists for you to go for this solo work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the compliments. Polyphia in particular, their album Renaissance, I think I had that album on repeat. It speaks to me for some reason. I don't know why. It just does. Like, something about that album from start to end is really cool. And I was heavily influenced by that. And just listening to artists like that, I think my style of writing, even if you listen to like Adorned and Ash is probably the easiest example, just because there was a lot of material written for that band.
Right.
You can hear the songs that I spent a lot of time on because of how I write, incorporating shred and melody. And I think it was awesome to be exposed to bands like Polyphia, Tesseract, Periphery, those type of bands, to get to see how they bring in a bit of like a newer look to things,
Right.
They kind of take songs and zoom out, break it apart, mush it up and bring it back, which I think was such a cool thing on my ear, because that's something that I've always tried to do within my own writing. So hearing other bands and just picking up on different melody lines and such like that helped me expand my like scope as such. So yeah, definitely huge influences, absolutely.
Right. So in 2019 you put out your first EP, Alisarin, right? How do you pronounce it? Alisarin?
Yeah, alizarin.
So what does that mean?
Alizarin is a color. So alizarin crimson. It's a type of red, and the color is quite an awesome color. I'm quite a big fan of the color red, but it's got a much deeper meaning than that. So alizarin crimson in particular is found in a lot of like very influential artworks, like historical moments and historical pieces. And for me, this was like a first. So it was like a very historical thing to go with it. And it is my red tie that connects all the albums. I'm currently working on another EP, which is to be announced. And there's literally like a red cord that runs through all of these albums. And it will be tied together with the next release. And you'll be able to see the big picture. But yeah, it's quite a big story of the Alizarin Chronicles, which incorporates Alizarin, Falling Forward, Harbinger, and then the next release that's coming. So yeah.
Right. So I also see that in your album's artwork, you have this sort of a beehive type of symbolism there. So is it kind of pointing that each of these albums are like connected to one another?
So on Alizarin, the what you're referring to is like the little design behind it. That's the chemical compound for alizarin. So if that is the chemical structure of it. And then in Falling Forward, you see the similar structure, and that's actually the structure for adrenaline. So if you are falling forward, you have several things that happen. You get like a spurt of adrenaline and so on. And so Falling Forward in particular refers to, I wrote it when I was quite ill, and I've got a bit of a neurotransmitter disorder, and often have struggled with like how my body produces adrenaline in particular. So it is just interesting for me how I was in a state of recovery, releasing something, having to do a fall forward into all of this stuff. It takes a lot of adrenaline that ties up with alizarin. And you'll see there's a theme that follows through all of the albums. It's kind of a nod to many things. I have a lot of like hidden things within, like meanings within meanings within meanings in my music, I suppose. So little nuggets for people to discover.
So one of the songs from Alizarin, which I really like, I like all 4 tracks of that EP. Even today I was walking, I was actually listening to all your 3 EPs over and over. So one of the songs I really like is Ocean Born, which you had an amazing video as well. My feeling is like when I listen to that, I get this feeling, like when the life was first emerged from the oceans to earth, like to land. So I get that sort of an idea that like, word Ocean Born, and then how you're playing on that song, it feels like it's a beginning, some sort of a beginning of life or something like that. Is that sort of what you're trying to say as well?
Absolutely. I think you've got it like quite spot on. For me, that song, I mean, my songs are open to interpretation always, but for me personally, that song it was like the deep waters of my soul, like pulling something out from way down deep inside myself and bringing it out to the surface and expressing myself. And I feel like becoming a solo artist or releasing things as a solo artist was really like pulling I needed to dig deep and to emerge, like come out and sorry, I'm trying to speak too fast here. Let me slow down. Getting too excited. I had to like breach out of this thing, like out of this cocoon, out of this deep water, out of whatever you want it to call, and just like really break free and push out of something, become something new. So emerge out of the deep waters, get out onto land, and like evolve, if you wish. So yeah, absolutely, spot on.
Right. So on the second album, Falling Forward, I also like the song Gravity, which is really nice song. That's actually one of my favorites from you as well.
Thank you so much.
How is this ideas for the music videos? How do you, you're doing it by yourself?
Yeah, so um, for several reasons, doing it by myself, I suppose, like it's hard for me to sometimes express what is in my mind to other people. So it's sometimes just easier for me to do it myself, so I can like express it. And I find it very therapeutic. But like, yeah, also just where there's a will, there's a way. And sometimes you don't need a lot of people to do things. Sometimes you just have to think creatively about it. So a lot of the stuff I do for myself, I do have help though. I do get some people involved sometimes with editing and so on and so on. But like in terms of music video, The Ocean Born, that I filmed myself with a camera on the beach, and edited and everything myself. So like there's times where you kind of just like one man MacGyver it, and other times where you can like call some favors in or like hire some people to help out. But I'm a firm believer in DIY.
Right, but that's really, I mean, that Oceanborn video looks like a big production, right? The output was like a big production.
If I'm completely honest with you, that video didn't cost me a cent to create. I have a I got a camera randomly.
Right.
Took it down to the beach. I had my cell phone in my bra like this with earphones so that you can't see them, so I could hear the track and I could play on time. And then I just put the camera and hopefully did something. So, yeah, and then when I got home, edited it a little bit, and spent a lot of time trying to make it cool. But the point is, like, I think a lot of musicians are crippled when they go like, oh, I don't have lots of money, or I don't have this equipment, I don't have that. You can film a video for free with your cell phone or with your laptop if you're creative enough.
Right.
So yeah, and at the time, like I just moved down to Cape Town, and I had sold everything to move to Cape Town. Like I had like nothing, and I didn't know anybody, and I knew I needed to create music, and I wanted to create music. So short from asking a random person on the beach to help, that's what I did, and it was fun. But it goes to show like what you can do if you think about things creatively and you're like out the box. Yeah, have some fun.
Right. So you use you have a relationship. You endorse Ibanez guitars, right? So when did that relationship started? How long you been playing Ibanez guitars?
Yeah, so Ibanez South Africa, I'm very proud to be endorsed by them, and it's been a long relationship. I've known the guys from Ibanez for quite some time, and we've had discussions over the years and been chatting. But I mean, it really came together in about 2017, 2018 again, when I started going a lot more solo. That's when the endorsement really came through. And yeah, it was just such a cool relationship with them. It's all about relationship building. Like we sat down one day and they're like, hey Robs, we've been checking out your playing and like we dig what you're doing. And it was awesome for me because I've always held a huge respect and love for Ibanez guitars. My first electric guitar was an Ibanez, and I mean, most of the people who I'm heavily influenced by play Ibanez, and there's a reason for it, because the guitars are better suited for the style. They feel more comfortable when you're playing that kind of stuff, so it is just a natural progression and a natural leading to this. And I'm so blessed and fortunate to have met them at the right time in the right place. Like I think it was just everything just aligned at the right time. Yeah.
Right. So you felt like very accomplished when like guys like Satriani is also endorsing Ibanez, he's also using, like now you're also part of the same brand.
It's a huge honor. I mean, still, like, my endorsement is with the South African local team, so it's not necessarily an international, but it's absolutely huge to be part of the team. I mean, it's a giant family. I've got good communication with the guys in Japan, with Yoji-san and all those peeps, and it's just like, it's absolutely amazing to deal with them. And even though I'm like some random little person in South Africa, they still are so amazing and so supportive, and like always keen to hear what you're doing, and always wanting to help out and support, and always pushing the bar to the next thing. And I feel like, for me personally, I always want to push myself. Ebenezer as a brand, they're always pushing themselves, so it makes sense to align with them, and it's just absolutely such a cool team. Yeah, I'm so stoked.
Right. Robyn, one of the other bands that you play, you're the vocalist, is the Sistas of Metal.
Yeah.
My understanding is that is like a more of a supergroup than actually a band. So can you tell me about this band, who's in that band, and how you ladies got together?
Yeah, so Sistas of Metal is a complete fun band. We play maybe 1 or 2 shows a year when we are available. Everybody in that band plays in other bands, and it's majority of all-female group, although we have been known to have a male drummer at one stage, very briefly for a show. His name's Alex, but he's an honorary girl, part of the band, honorary sister.
Right.
Lady, as we call him. But the idea of the band is spawned from an event that we played a bunch of years ago. So it was a festival, and each of the members of Sistas of Metal have their own bands, and we all happen to be on the same lineup for the same event. And we all friends, all the girls all happen to be friends, and we were chatting, and we were like, hey, it's the organizer's birthday. It happens to be Women's Day, and we are all ladies. We all our bands are playing. What if we had a jam after the event? Like, what if we spoke to the organizer and just said, hey, we want to mess around, like, way at the end of the festival, would you be keen?
Right.
Versus like having some fun. And she said, yeah, absolutely, go for it. And so we put a couple songs together, a handful of covers, just to like really have fun at like the 3 a.m. slot when everybody's wasted and we just want to have fun. And it went down so well that we actually got booked for a gig, and we thought it was a laugh, so we did it again, and then it just snowballed from there. But the members change, but for the most part it's myself, and then we've got Tamla on guitar from Tamla Khan.
Right.
She's also like a solo artist, and she's an absolutely amazing shredder, like 80s style. We've got Callista, who plays for Posthumous, which is like a bit of a mix of like prog instrumental and like a bit of like old school thrashy, shreddy heaviness. Yeah. Then we got Rishan on bass, and she plays for Riddlebrick, who's also like quite an active band in South Africa at the moment. It's like quite prog, so like gent vibes, quite out there and awesome. They're doing very well for themselves. And then yeah, drummers tend to change depending on who's available. Like drummers are hard to find, but we've had Taryn, who's been playing with us, and she's a teacher and a session drummer. So yeah, there's a bunch of awesome people.
Right. So few months ago, I did an episode with one of the bands from Greece, and actually that's how I got to know Devo, because Devo, I think he works with that band, so he got connected with me in Facebook, and so they were been sending me so many of these South African bands and a lot of these bands. So how long you been working with Devo?
Devo and I have been working together since the beginning of 2020 or end of 2019, or about, I think. I've actually lost a bit of track as to how long we've been working together. But right. We've known each other for many, many years. I mean, I've bumped shoulders with Devo for decades. He's taken photos because he's an amazing photographer as well as like a manager. So he's taken photos of Adorned and Ash or Sisters of like, you know, we've always bumped shoulders and such. So with Falling Forward in particular, we got together and like, yeah, we've been working together really seriously since then.
Right.
And it's an amazing relationship with him. He's a fantastic dude and has amazing connections and amazing artists and puts people in contact. And that's how I can talk with you today. How amazing.
Right. Yes. Yes. So, Robyn, you touched on earlier a little bit about what you went through with your health, and can you tell me a little bit about how did you overcome that? Because I mean, what sort of I believe you were sort of even thinking of giving up music, but you were still able to come out of it, and then now you're able to release so many great music. So, can you tell me a little bit about that challenge?
Yeah, so I collapsed and was in hospital for quite some time. Basically, I've been diagnosed with a degenerative neurotransmitter disease or disorder, and basically that influences a lot of like my motor function. So in the time of my recovery, so when I collapsed, I hurt myself quite badly in the process of it, and throughout the hospital and getting better with treatments and such. It took quite some time to regain motor function, in particular in my left side. So playing guitar, obviously you need your left hand, and I've got a lot of nerve damage from that. So I don't always have feeling in all of my fingers and my hands. Like it comes and goes, and parts of my other body. And it was quite a challenge because at the time I wasn't sure if I'd ever be able to play guitar again. And that thought is quite daunting. So I considered learning to play the other way around. I thought of what other things I could do. I was going to focus a lot more on vocals if that was the case, but not playing was not an option. You know, like I had to perform. I would have to be some sort of an artist in some sense. Like if it wasn't going to be guitar, if I could only move my big toe, I will make sure that I can make some kind of noise with it, you know, to be in some kind of music. So it was just really knuckling down and going like, am I going to give up on my life, or am I going to do everything possible to do something? And then with amazing doctors and treatment and a lot of patience, I've regained a lot of that, and I've been able to continue playing guitar. So it's awesome. But it is a lot of really deciding what I want to do with my life and really pushing to make it happen, regardless of physical constraints.
Right. It's really amazing, like, you know, overcoming that sort of challenge, because a lot of people would just give up, right? Regular person would just say, oh, I cannot feel my hand, so I don't play guitar. There's a similar, I have you heard of Jason Becker?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's still making music with his eyes, right? He cannot move his whole body, but he still makes music with his eyes, right?
Yeah. I mean, Beethoven lost his hearing and wrote some of his best music. Like, I think you can take something that happens to you, or like your situation or whatever, and it's like terrible things happen to people, sure, but it happens for a reason, and there's always something to be learned from that. And you can always spin it around somehow. You can always turn it to the positive. It's not easy, but you can always flip it around. You just have to want to, like really, truly in your soul want to do something about it, and then believe that you can, and you will.
Right. So that I saw your performance during the pandemic, your solo performance on the Winterfest. You performed on the Winterfest from is that from your living room or from your bedroom?
It's from my bedroom. So yeah, I think like with lockdown, everybody's moved everything into their bedrooms. So my bedroom is my office, is my music room, is my stage apparently. So
Right.
yeah, that that was in this room actually. So yeah,
Was
a
it
lot of fun.
was it weird to play like, a festival from your house? Like,
It was very strange because like the festival is happening and bands are performing, but you're sitting in your bedroom and you're the only one in your house, and you're
right,
like, how do I what? But it was so cool because there was also like a lot of interaction. So an interaction in a different way, like
right.
talking to people online, sitting here and talking like this, and having a virtual beer with people versus like it was so weird. It was so weird, but it was such a cool experience at the same time. And I think the guys who did Metal for Africa can really like pat themselves on the back because they pulled it off. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's a lot to like tweak and such, I think, going forward, but they pulled it off, and it was so much fun. Yeah.
I think the pandemic actually opened up a sort of a new way of putting out music, right? Putting out live gigs. I think even if the pandemic is over, I think the live streaming would still go on, right? There will be people who would really still want to do that sort of thing, right?
I think the world is completely different now, and we'll see what happens in like 5 to 10 years' time, how
Yeah.
this has impacted the future, like way in the future. But for the immediate future, definitely. I mean, it's made music somewhat more accessible to people. I mean, I'm watching shows that are happening on the other side of the other side of the world.
Right.
I suppose I could have done that before because live streaming has been a thing. It's just I guess we haven't always been aware of it.
Right.
I think a lot of people. I'm seeing a big divide in musicians in a way, like musicians who are almost being defeated by this, and they're going like, "Oh, what's the point? There's no venues, there's no shows, and my life sucks, and I'm just gonna stop." And then you get other musicians who are like, whoa, the whole world has stopped and they are in front of their computer. Now is the time. So it's like you can see this as two very different things. Yes, it's a
Mhm.
terrible thing that's happening within the world, but you can choose what you want to make of it. And I think going forward, we're going to see a lot of live streams, and I think it's a lot of more musicians are being exposed. Like a lot of solo artists are coming up. There's a lot more music that's being released.
Mm.
I think that adds a lot of pressure to artists because now it's a more instant world, so you have to write and release a lot more and a lot quicker to stay relevant. But all in all, I think it will be good for those who see the good, yeah,
Right.
and
Right.
terrible for those who don't.
I'm not sure if you've seen I think one of the best live streams of 2020 is the Behemoth live stream. I don't know if you saw that.
I missed it, but I'm so upset that I missed it, but I heard it was insane.
Right.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did watch it because it's like watching it almost felt like watching a movie because it was
Yeah,
so good that they have you choreographed and everything was so well done. It was so amazing actually.
it's going back to that whole like production. It's like a real show. I think
Right.
COVID has maybe been awesome because if you think about it, or I don't know about where you are, but in South Africa, often you'll go to the club or like wherever, and it's the same bands, just same fans, and it's the same show. Like you almost stand there and you're like, I know what song they're gonna play next, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And to an extent that's cool because on one hand then people know what's coming and like people sing along and yeah, but it also becomes very static. And I think just watching a band being a band is almost, dare I say, like not good enough anymore. People want more. I want to see like, cool, I've seen a band on stage. What's different? Like why should I sit here in front of my computer and watch you?
Mm.
It needs more. So going back to like these big productions or like shows, like a real show, like real entertainment. I'm so disappointed that I missed that.
Right. So,
Yeah.
with the pandemic and lockdown, Robyn, what did you personally, did you realize, or anything that you realized during the pandemic personally?
Yeah, several things. A lot of like personal reflection, which I need to work on myself. But I just realized a couple things, like reiterating stuff that I already know. That like people, you're gonna get people who love your music, who hate your music, and who really don't care. Uh, Also, that one should zoom in and zoom out. So for example, like you're getting very worked up about like your music, and maybe you're taking 5 years to release one song because you want it to be perfect. But if you zoom out, 5 years of probably terrible music has happened in that time that you've been trying to tweak your one.
Right.
Just release it, put it out there. Like, stop being so afraid of failure. There's so many people doing so many things that, like, if it's terrible, it's not so bad. Like, just keep going. Like, just like the wheel keeps turning. Don't forget that the wheel keeps turning. That's what I needed to remember. It's like, even though everything in lockdown is somewhat stopped, life will continue, and life will like go on. You need to be ready to take those steps. So like, it was just a reminder for me. Yeah. So it was really rad.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and also like what I realized, because in the Philippines we are actually still in lockdown. So we are in the lockdown for like 7 months now. So we
Yeah.
spend most of our time at home. uh, I'm actually glad that before the pandemic, I went to so many concerts. I took all the opportunity that came in. I went to all the shows that I can. So now that there's nothing happening, so I don't know like when the next show will happen, right? So it might be 2021 or it might be 2022. So I really thinking that you have to take the opportunities when they come, because these might not come again, right? So it might be a simple thing, like my kid. I have 11-year-old son who is a WWE fan. He's a wrestling fan. So last
Yeah.
year last year we went to the WWE. It was a big decision for us, for the whole family, to travel and watch WWE. Now I'm really thinking that uh, I did that for him because he might not experience that again, right? So because he's living with that memory, and then he was able to, like, his dreams came true. So I always feel that we have to take the opportunity, and this is actually one of the reasons I actually created this podcast while in the pandemic, while in lockdown.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's exactly that. It's remembering, like, yeah, it's to be appreciative of what we have and what we can and can't do. You know, like, if you have
Right.
the opportunity to do it, do it. Even if it is a bit difficult. I think so many people just want like something to fall out the sky, but you have to hustle. The hustle is real.
Right.
So it's awesome to see that you put something like this together. It's doing so well, and you look like you're having the best time. And it's wonderful because it's before lockdown. You and I would probably, well, may not ever have spoken, and
Right.
now here we are chatting and something amazing, and like connecting the metal community or the music community. Like, we're connecting the world. Like,
Right.
that to me is fantastic. So there, even though the pandemic is terrible, and it's, yeah, like, you feel horrible because we're all stuck and people are dying and it's a serious thing, but there's also great good that's coming of it.
Yeah.
We can want to focus on the good or the bad.
Yeah, I think you saw my post on the Instagram where I put you, and because just one weekend it's like I'm talking to guitarists from like 3 continents, and they're like in all 3 different genres, and it's it's really amazing how things are actually getting getting together.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I think it's awesome. Like, yeah, we can, it's serious, as I say, but the good outweighs the bad here, I think. That's
Right.
rad.
One thing, Robyn, with your music, especially with prog music, instrumental music.
Mm.
Typically, you would have one or two tracks in an album of like you would want to feature somebody to play a solo or part of the song, right? Do you have any
Yeah,
ideas or inspirations to have some people to play on your album?
absolutely, Channa. I think you've got you you letting the cat out the bag. So yeah, currently I am writing a lot of music. Currently, there are two other people who are involved
Mm.
in featuring on something coming up.
Right.
So yes, definitely collabs are in the works. There's some amazing things, and I'm biting my tongue right now to tell you about them because I can't right now. But yeah, amazing things. Like I've got two fantastic musicians that I'm working with, and then going forward, there's a lot in the pipeline in terms of music releases, videos. There are some plans for touring and all kinds of things like that. So yeah, like really cool, exciting things, and definitely some collabs, some featuring on my stuff and me on other people's stuff as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Right. Right. So, Robyn, what's your message to people who listen to your music, who's been supporting you?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you so much to everybody who's supported through the thick and thin. It's been ups and downs and lefts and rights and a complete roller coaster. So, massive thank you to everybody who's always been supported and listening. But to everybody who's new, it's just never give up, like work hard, play hard, stay true to yourself, and just really, like, if you've got a, like, you're here for a purpose, there is a plan and purpose for your life. And don't ever give up on anything that you believe in, like no matter what, just keep pushing forward. It's not always going to be easy. It will most likely be very hard for most of the time, but it will be worth it. And everything happens for a reason. Like, I know that's all very cliche things to say, but they are very true. And yeah, like you're here for a reason. Even if you don't know what that is right now, you're here for a reason on this planet right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Robyn, anybody you want to shout out to?
Yeah, thank you to David Devo Oosthuizen, who's organized all of this cool stuff. He's rad, Devo Graphic, huge shout outs. To you, Mr. Channa, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is amazing. Clinton Watts, who's my producer, thank you to him. And yeah, to my endorsers, Ebenezer. So yeah, thank you.
Right.
Huge.
Robyn, this was really great. That I'm glad that we were able to talk. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I really love your music as well. So keep. I'm excited that you said something is coming up. So looking forward to that. Uh, so keep making great music. So lastly, tell everyone how they can follow you and listen to your music.
Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere where good music is streamed or played. So you can find my stuff under Robyn Ferguson on Spotify, Bandcamp, YouTube, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon, basically everywhere. If you search Robyn Ferguson, you'll find some of my solo work. Adorned in Ash, if you want to hear some black and death metal stuff with vocals and guitars. And Sistas Of Metal, if you want to hear some all-female power groupness. That would be great. Yeah, so anywhere on social media and interwebs.
Right, Robyn. So thank you. So have a great day. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you so much. I wish you all the best, and this has been lovely. Thank you so much. Rock on.